MHO Talk Show.
Today, this as we speak to y'all live on air under the sound of our voices, right? We are the Sunday before the election of 2024. The election for 2024, right? This is gonna be a historical one. So we had to bring.
How is everybody feeling?
So we had to bring in the big guns.
Yeah,
we had to bring in the big guns. But hey, you asked us how we're feeling.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you all are feeling.
We talk about the election coming up, right? Or just in general. Okay. Let me see. I don't know. Like honestly, if I'm speaking from my heart of hearts, I don't know, because I'm going to have to figure out how to survive through each presidency. I'm not in agreement with either one, honestly.
What does that mean, though? What does that mean, being in agreement with them? Agreeing on what exactly?
I don't like either one of them. Like I honestly,
policies, or you don't trust them.
I don't like their policies. You know what I'm saying? Where I don't dislike either one of them wholeheartedly. And I'm not in agreement with each one to the point where I'm like second guessing, do I want to get this? Am I willing to give up that on this person? And vice versa. You know what I'm saying? So while I know as a black man, I shouldn't be looking at the Republican side at all. Right? That's because, you black, you Democrat by default. Ain't that what they say? So you can laugh, Angelique. That's all right. And
I mean, I wouldn't ride with that. But
well, no, I'm just saying.
Like, based on who they got leading right now,
it's not riding with them. It's not riding with them. What I'm actually looking at is where my life is right now. Right, taking out all emotion, and I put down what I'm voting for, what matters to me, what I've lost, what I don't like about how things are, right? And then I start taking what I know about what they've said and what they've done in their past and lining that up. And my truth is, I don't see where I win without being able to migrate with either one of them in my life.
That's deep.
Yeah.
Now let's add this point of clarification before we go any further too, though, because we know that the national, the federal elections always get the spotlight, shined on it.
Yeah.
But we also have some local seats that's up as well. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But want folks to know that, why the big sexy is always a presidential election.
Yeah.
In many, many ways, your local election set the tone and is even more important in some regards. When you think about locally, whether it's city, county, or even state, those are the folks who have the votes for the federal level to be able to do what they do for the most part. So
right.
When folks remember that we're going to dig into all of this today. It's not just about Harrison and Trump,
and we're gonna be honest too.
So let's educate ourselves on it.
Yeah, y'all might not like what we say, but we're gonna be honest. And the show is called In My Humble Opinion.
In My Humble Opinion. And good radio tells all sides. Angelique, good journalism.
Yeah, bring her in, y'all.
Like great journalism. I correct me if I'm wrong, but because I know a lot of times you and I've had these conversations. Like sometimes people will maybe misinterpret it, maybe take wrong an article or a headline that Charlottesville Tomorrow may put out there.
Sure.
Sometimes forgetting that good journalism just sets the stage, just gives you the info, tell you what it is, and you as a reader takes that information and you should come to your own conclusion. Like you just take the facts and come to your own conclusion. So a lot of times people get mad at us, especially Razor, because because we try to show the full spectrum, so we can critically think.
Yeah. And I think, if you're like Razor, and you're thinking about your vote and who you're going to vote for president, what I would say is it's really important to get good quality information.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, if you're relying on the ads that are coming through social media, I don't know about you guys, my inbox, my text messaging, it's just pummeled with these campaign ads. It's a lot of money going into folks trying to get their version of the facts out.
Yeah.
And I will say some candidates' version is more truthful than others.
That's true.
And how do we understand that, right? I think having good quality, accessible, for Charlottesville Tomorrow, free to access information is really crucial. It's really crucial. Vote on the facts, and not on the way that candidates present the facts. or present their version of reality. And we know, you know, I'm a journalist. We're a news organization. We are not a news organization that does any endorsements. We are nonpartisan. And also we know from reporting that the Trump campaign, a lot of misinformation and disinformation is coming through that campaign.
You know the bad part about that, Charles?
Yeah.
I remember when certain people were president before, life was bad because people talked out the side of their neck and act crazy. But as a business owner, I thrived. It was troubling for me to living a life where people were like so disrespectful, I just didn't like the way the country was. But business wise, as an entrepreneur, I thrived. That's when I made my name here. And when I grew to the levels that I did grow to, was during that time. So now my family is getting a chance to be exposed financially to things we had only talked about that was like 3-5 years down the road, where our reality now. But then life was like going out every day waiting on somebody to disrespect you because they thought that they could. Because it was openly and accepted in the presidency. So it was a troubling time for me, man.
Interesting. But Angela, you didn't say how you feel though. Like you gave us some of the actual factuals. Like, but you as and you came on our radio show. You know how we do. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it 100. You being an Indian American woman.
Successful Indian American woman. No, we calling you successful before you back out.
Yeah, you know, like running a business and all that good stuff.
We run a nonprofit.
Nonprofit. Yeah.
Nonprofit. Charlottesville Tomorrow is nonprofit news.
True that. Yeah. But how are you feeling this election season?
There's no denying how. You guys saw when Black Panther came out, right? Like, how does it feel?
Which one? The first one or the second?
First one.
The first one. That's the only Black Panther. That second one was garbage.
I like the second one, but how does it feel, right? Like, not that. Of course, we've all seen ourselves represented in media, in politics before, but to that level, there is something. For me, it was like Crazy Rich Asians, right? When Crazy Rich Asians came out, you have this feeling of whether you think it's a great film, whether you don't, whether you like rom-coms or not. You have this feeling of, we all been like watching white folks and rom-coms for a long time and enjoying them. Maybe I liked 16 Candles as much as the rest of us, right? But actually, everyone else can also enjoy seeing people who don't look like them.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
And I say that, again, I'm a journalist, I'm nonpartisan. Just the visual of having Kamala Harris or somebody who frankly can eat some of the same food my family eats, or somebody who has migration stories the way that my family has migration stories, and mixed race families. There is something that's quite empowering about that. Whether she wins or not, whether folks vote for her or not, it is quite a thing to see. And I can't say that, I'm now into my middle years, I would call them. I can't say that like 10 years ago, it was even a thought in my brain, there could be a Black Daisy American.
Oh, we went through that with Obama.
President.
We went through that with Obama.
Even Obama, I had a similar feeling. And now it's like even closer to home. So, that's just really empowering. I'm really, I have nieces. I'm like thrilled for them. It's not even going to be a question for them that this is possible.
That's right.
Awesome. That is awesome.
I love it.
Yes, indeed. One of the things that makes me think of as well is I remember my son actually decided to dress up as Obama, but President Barack Obama for it was like book character day, and so he had a Barack Obama book. And so this was I think this may have been for the second term, right? So he would have been like 6. If I remember correctly, for that second term, what I mean? Like, so that's the kind of representation and things that that we're talking about, and the impact that can have. But real quick though, my thing when it comes to the feeling and the take, I ultimately want folks to, as you said, be informed, number one, and so my feeling is that I'm fearful that people, are still voting for the wrong reasons.
They are,
and I just try my best to spread correct information and whatnot, and I understand how people's vote people typically vote one of two ways. Either you vote for the betterment of the society at large, or you vote for strictly personal interests.
I think most people, it's some combination of the two.
I mean, it's a combination, but I feel like at the end of the day, like you have to pick.
Yeah.
Like ultimately, you got to be like, who's going to be best for what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I personally err on the side of what's better for the whole. For instance, like I heard Razor mention business and whatnot. Actually, as our tax preparer, just the other day, like, and I said, because we've had business since the Bush administration and through Obama, Trump, Biden. So I was like, when have we done the best? And surprisingly, honestly, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, surprisingly, they said during the Democratic presidencies. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that part of that is the way that our financial structure is built up, meaning that, as a matter of fact, Dave Chappelle did a joke about it. He did a joke about it, talking about, when Bush was in office, like it was okay to be greedy. Now we got Obama in there. He talking about, like this giving. He want to take some of my money and say we should be sharing. I don't like this sharing. I want to be selfish. You know what I mean? But my point, that's part of it, because you find like sometimes some administrations, the way that they do the tax code and stuff, it can be more favorable to you if you have more charitable donations, right? And then on the flip side, some may implement a tax code to where the more money you make and keep, it may be more favorable to you tax wise. Right. You see what I'm saying? So it really depends on what side you're on. Yeah. But ultimately, I feel like when we vote, it's supposed to be, the vote to me is supposed to be for the whole, for the commonwealth, for the common good, not any special interest.
Well, look, the way I look at it sometimes too is, yes, there are particular policies that can help or hurt individuals or specific families or people with specific levels of wealth or generational wealth at that point. When you get down to sort of the local level in particular, one thing to keep in mind is that no matter how rich you are, you can't fix a pothole if there isn't a structure to fix a pothole. You can't make the public schools strong if there isn't a structure to make public schools strong. You can't prevent gun violence with money. You cannot.
Can't.
Right?
That's right.
You cannot. And those are also things that will affect your individual well-being.
Spot on.
So, and again, right, every candidate has ways of talking about these issues that you can evaluate for yourself, which is why Charlottesville Tomorrow has been putting so much effort into our voter guide for so many years.
That's right.
Even though, we don't cover presidential election. I don't think anybody's going to CVilleTomorrow.org to get information about the presidential candidates, except
you'd be surprised.
That yes, when we start looking, so can I get into it, Charles, to explain how to use the voter guide?
Yes,
absolutely. And for those that don't know, we are talking about, if you're curious, cvtom.org/2024 voter guide. So that's cvtom.org/2024 voter guide.
Yes. That's where you find it. You also just find it at the top of our homepage. Listen, if you're subscribed for free emails from us, you're getting that link in your inbox.
Yep.
Our voter guide, we really last year was a huge year for local elections. Everything was up for grabs. This year is smaller, but still really important, mainly in town councils. So if you're in Scottsville, if you're in Mineral, in Louisa, if you're in Louisa Town, these are places that have seats up for grabs that it's really important to learn about. When you get to the voter guide, we built this tool so that, and this sounds so basic, but it wasn't really available. There's a tool, you put in your address, and what's on your ballot will pop up with links to candidate Q&As and information about those candidates. Not every candidate responds to the Q&As that we build. We do a giant survey to build those Q&As, and then we ask candidates questions. Not every candidate responds, so when we don't have candidate responses, we have curated some links and informations to nonpartisan sources so that you can see at least as much as we've got about those candidates. If you're familiar with Charlottesville Tomorrow, you know Charlottesville Tomorrow has been doing a voter guide since its founding in 2005. Last year, we expanded the voter guide beyond Charlottesville and Albemarle into 12 Central Virginia counties and cities. Why? Because we found that you can Google the name of people who are on your ballot and find nothing in some cases, or find only a Facebook page or a website designed by that candidate which has not been vetted by any independent source or journalist. So we really started investing because this is core, right? Even if you're in a precinct where there's 700 voters, those 700 voters are going to affect the school board for the whole county, right? Yeah. So this is really core to our democracy. So we began to invest in this, and we hope you all can use that tool.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to, go to your registrar and look at a PDF of your ballot, so that you can, even if while you're waiting in line to vote, if you haven't already voted, I know a lot of people have already voted. Tuesday you're waiting in line to vote, you can go to that voter guide and at least get some information to make a choice. So it's not just based on who you know or what you've happened to heard, but something you've proactively gone out and
I'm waiting till Tuesday, Charles.
Yeah.
I got to wait till Tuesday because I'm still looking at all information. And something that you said earlier was voting for the greater good.
Now, hopefully you're talking about up and down the ballot. You ain't just talking about just the president, right?
No, I'm talking about all around because I understand now, honestly, since I got as a board member of Charlottesville Tomorrow, because I had access to things that I didn't think was for me. And when you and I came on, and Giles was back there, I started actually looking and listening and realized how the things that I thought didn't affect me were directly affecting me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so I'm so thankful for what we do at Charlottesville Tomorrow to give access to everybody. Right. But am I wrong for feeling like I am the greater good? My household is the greater good.
I don't think you're
wrong.
What do you think, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think they're necessarily.
Is that a collective? Because that's a slippery slope.
I may need a little more context around that, but
I think personally, in order for you to be a active member of your community and for you to bring something to the table, you have to do everything that you can to be the best version of yourself. So therefore, if I lay out all my wants and needs, my hard yeses, my hard no's, and I vote according to that, I'm voting what would be known as selfishly, but I'm voting it so that I can be productive in the community.
Oh, I feel you. Yeah, I feel what you're saying. My main thing to that, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it makes me think about, other folks who say that for the reason of justifying why Black people would vote for Donald Trump. From my knowledge, from what I know from that perspective, is that.
Now, I didn't say I was voting for Donald Trump.
I know, I got you.
Look, you got.
But you made me think of it though. But you just made me think. That's where it took me. Like when I hear people say, weighing the sides and whatnot, from in my humble opinion, there. I'm not going to stay at a job and work at a job to where I am blatantly disrespectful because they're able to pay me. That's just my perspective. Now, to each his own. But when we look at things where we see everybody that's on his team, and I know you nonprofit, so you may got to stay away from it unless you want to give your personal opinion. But my humble opinion is that when we look at the teams, right, and I hear the side of folks saying to Black people, well, what have the Democrats done for you? The Democrats have always taken you for granted. That's what one side says, right? But then when I look at the other side, you look at teams that are literally from neo-Nazi group, white supremacy group, people who have business histories of discriminating against people of color in their business practices. They support a plan such as Project 2025. Undoubtedly, people who support that and wrote that, also funders and donors, and even part of the team. And that is specifically to set us back pre-civil rights. So when I look at that, I don't care how good of a tax break you're going to give me.
Yeah.
I feel like you're going to hurt my children more in the future. By me voting for that nonsense rather than you saying, I'm going to give, Black businesses this kind of break. Okay. But what are you doing for us long term? And your whole ideology, like your whole even theology, is so misconstrued to where that's where I have to look at the people, the person, and honestly be like, where, where does this lead us? Where does this take us? And we as Black people can't bank all that necessarily on Democrats of the past. We have to look at it as how can we enact these actual policies, to better ourselves.
Would you pivot as a business if you could and it benefited you?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's my question to you. Would you? Yes or no?
Well, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. No,
you wouldn't.
I would say no for the fact that. So let me break it down like this. And I'm sorry, Angela, we're gonna get back on track. So now.
No, just out here trying to find one of these black jobs they offer until Tuesday.
right. You know, and one of these Isho countries that's a pile of garbage floating.
Yeah.
Like, no, you ain't gonna talk about me and my people like that and get my vote, bro. I
got you. I'm just saying, like, but
to your point, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
So I answered that in the beginning, but I'm gonna give you another example. I tell people all the time, as much as I despise George W. Bush, I would so much be okay with him being a choice as a Republican candidate now over what we have. For that simple fact of that, I could see still then, and when you think about like Senator John McCain and that mold of Republicans, even though I didn't agree with them totally and didn't support them totally, at least there was policies and people in place where I felt like it was just about the money and like they were good in that regard. But I feel like the folks that we have in now have way deeper more hidden agendas, and they're hiding behind like that fiscal conservatism to trick us when really they are setting us back and they're making us more subservient.
So we so close at talking, but this is my thing. I will pivot like a pirate with a peg leg because I don't want anybody setting parameters that say, okay, I'm going to give this to people of color, black people, whatever. And I have to stay within that realm in order to get that benefit. That means they're limiting my growth. We watch it in housing. We watch it in jobs. The same child that'll get me locked up will get my wife's services. And then I can't move back into the house. Let's say if I have a felony and she can't go get the job that she deserves after getting her education because she comes out of the threshold and she has to start all over with her and the kids. So one of the struggles I have is that there are parties that seem to build things to keep us where we at. Is this where you are? So I'm going to give you something to stay right here. Because if you come out of that, then you go to nothing. And you're in that gray area between having money and being able to do something and not having something and being subservient, as you said, and receiving these benefits. So me personally, I love my kids. I love my kids on their worst day more than I love myself on my best day. So if I have to give up my self-respect, I wasn't like this. I was a selfish only child, right? But if I have to give up everything about me and look like a Sambo, Uncle Tom, everything to give my kids and my grandkids the best life that they can have, hey, where your tap dance shoes at?
Now, can I answer that? My rebuttal would be, that makes me think about people who sue McDonald's because the coffee's too hot.
Yes.
That's what that makes me think of. And I say that because it's like, it's coffee. You know, it's hot. We're grown-ups, right? We're adults. I'm going to give you hot coffee because the coffee is supposed to be hot. If you are clumsy and spill it, I don't think that you should be able to sue me because the coffee's hot. Now, my whole point with
Angela said if there's policies in place, then these are things that you can take advantage of. So if I'm able to sue because the coffee was not tested to go over a certain temperature, that's liability on the organization themselves.
Also, that case, for your younger listeners, you might not remember what a big deal it was in California. It kind of helped make the stereotype of California as this very litigious place to live. Actually, there's a really good documentary about this case, and that poor woman really got hurt, and there were actually some legitimate claims she had, and you know, people kind of.
Oh, for sure.
Thank you, Miss Shah. For sure. I didn't know how to say it like that. Thank you so much.
Now, let me clarify what I was saying. So let me clarify my point though. Is that now I get it. If somebody's just drinking the coffee and it like scolds their mouth, of course I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the folks who have like these erroneous complaints just to try to take advantage of a situation. The point that I'm making.
Whose choice is that to make it erroneous?
Here's my point. Let me bring my point home, is that we shouldn't blame Democrats or Democratic policies and social services and all these things that can become a crutch to us for the, like, in contrast to the help that is meant to give. So my point is that if this person needs a service, I would much rather that service be available, even if that means this other person is abusing the service. So I feel like that we actually blame the Democratic policies too much in that regard. Whereas, would you rather have somebody abuse these services and interests, or it not be available at all.
Well, we got to be fair.
You know what I mean?
We got to be fair.
I think that's where we are.
That way on Democrats, we got to look at that way on Republicans. We can't fault anybody. Like, we know successful African Americans that own land, houses, and everything else, right? So because their lifestyle, because people made better choices and people sacrificed early in order for them to get certain tax breaks to be in this economic status of a Republican, who are we to fault because you have a certain amount of revenue, black or white? Well, let me finish. Yeah. So now at that point, yes, we can't blame Democrats, but we can't blame Republicans either. And if I aspire to have a life that lines up, if I say this is the type of life I live, and then when I match up where the parties are at that particular 4-year service or 8-year service, whichever one that lines up with my family and my values, or at least doesn't go against my morality to the point that I'm sick every night, you have a right to choose that and then survive through that presidency.
I'm with you.
You know,
my only rebuttal to that, on the flip side, what I said about liberals and Democrats, on the conservative side, it would not be as big a deal, because I hear my brothers and sisters out here too that are very like pro-black and everything, and actually saying, and I understand the philosophy and ideology of when you think about like a Malcolm X or like any like black liberation sort of theology from days before, of that, you know, we did start off more conservative, like as far as like more fiscally independent and all that, and you want the people to have the power. You don't want too many government oversights and regulations and stuff.
That's right.
So at its core, I would agree with that. If we ever made it to a post-racial society, that is why we still need regulations. And I feel like that's why we are better off working through that, because the people that are saying, well, it's like, let's get government out the way and let the people have free reign and do it. People, you know as well as I do, people of color don't have the leg up to be successful that way. Let's keep it 100 with each other.
No, I'm with you on that. We
don't reserve now we could, don't get me wrong. If we get our stuff together, we absolutely could, but we don't hold the wealth and the social power or control the social construct to be able to be like deregulate everything as the Republicans are saying, because the people in power are showing to be racist.
So when we say defund the police, are we not saying the same thing? Because if we want to regulate ourselves inside our own neighborhoods without any oversight, we can't have it both ways. So if we're going to vote on where we are and then we plan on staying there, that's what should be a vote. If you don't like the way things are and you say, okay, that is a better day, do I got to go through the sticker bars to get to that point? That's your right too. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So what I am fearful of is that because we're black and because we want to see certain things, that our emotion is leading our votes and not truly where our lifestyle is or where we plan on going. And if we don't have any plans on where we plan on going, then we're already lost. And that's going to be a bad vote all the way around.
What, you know, the use of sort of slogans and things that are that people may feel like defund the police is, you know, these are activist slogans in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of depth to the way some people think about this kind of abolitionist movement. But what I would say is, if you are a voter, if I could offer any piece of advice, look at the candidates' positions, because while they might get cast a certain way by one party, reading their positions, reading what they've actually said is really the way to know what they intend to do or what they say they do, what you can actually hold them accountable to do. I would say don't use the slogans that their opponents put on them to decide what their policy is going to be.
Would you rather the devil you know or the devil you don't?
Well, I think there are ways to know all the devils. You know, and that's the point, fair. Right?
Yeah, I was about to say that. We know both devils.
There are ways. And even when you get down, and when we're talking about building wealth in communities, yes, federal policy matters. Federal elections matter. And also your local planning commission matters. Who is treasurer in your town or county matters. Who, you know, how those local decisions are made really matters, actually, a lot. How your schools are run matters. So, you know, there's just a lot of ways to parse that and say, what is the role of a president of the United States? Are they getting down into the weeds and setting policy? Or are they setting the tone? What is the role of a treasurer in Nelson County? What is the role of a mayor of a town in Virginia to make decisions for everybody?
Yeah. But Angela, aren't the majority of the people that go to the meetings before the election are a certain party and not the other? Because one party seems to only show up at your churches and want to help you during election time. Another one, even though they act like they don't care, no time at all. You know what I'm saying? They're consistent. So some people might view it as okay. Some people look at it worse because you show up in my face when you need me, as opposed to somebody who's not there at all. Like, I know how you are, you know what I'm saying? And Black people and people of color deal with racism like that. You know what I'm saying? Sure. They much rather know how somebody feels. I'd rather know the racist is over there, right? Because then I can know how to operate. I don't want to put my trust in something that I don't know that I might speak and they don't speak to me. Or I might walk back, you know what I'm saying? So I think that a lot of ways, one of the parties tends to show all 32 teeth when there's a need, right? And then once they get you in a box, then they say, okay, well, you agreed to this, so this is what we're trying to do. Now, the box that I'm putting you in, I know it's 50,000 y'all over there, but we only got 8 slots. You know what I'm saying? But there's 8 more slots than what they're giving you, as opposed to people, especially people of color, are starting to get more successful in the men's side because of entrepreneurship. So because people
in the men's side,
on the male side of things, because a lot of people of color that look like me in my age group have been to prison, have felonies, have things that exclude them from housing, apartments, and other things. And the only way around that is not the money that you get from the government, but actually being out here and generating your own wealth. Now, if I have to generate my own wealth, I'm going to go with the party that allows me to make the most money.
And that's an analysis you have to make. Which party is that going to be?
Well, no, that's an analysis I was thrown into. I and people like me did not choose to have to live like that. I'm very intelligent, right? But because there was a fictitious war on drugs, and as long as they could get people in court, the judges who were owning the prisons were getting money. There were a lot of people who are getting expungements and stuff now, but they went into the system. So you've literally lost 20, 30 years of your life trying to prove something that was legal on one side, but illegal on another. If I had cocaine, I got 5 years. If I had crack, I got 20. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because of baking soda. So baking soda is another 15 years, right? The system wasn't broken. It was done what it was made to do. Yeah.
So the meetings that you mentioned though, like that's more about money. People who, because I complain about that all the time too. Like we have these local government meetings and town halls like in the afternoon. So to me, that ain't even partisan. That's about who got money to be at home in the middle of the afternoon.
To be clear, local offices are nonpartisan, right? People are not running as part of a party for these local offices. And
wait a minute, I don't know if I believe that. I may be wrong, but I'm speaking from my understanding, not from what might be actual fact. And that's what people.
But it's both sides, though. Because we got to remember, I mean, like there's rich on both sides.
She's probably 100% right. But if my understanding tells me that that's not true, my vote is going to match my misunderstanding.
You might look at a candidate and their positions for a local office and feel that they resemble one party or another, but they are not running as part of a party. And when you look at money in the politics, there are some races that have become more politicized and there's more money in those campaigns. But this year, no, there's like almost no money in most of the campaigns. And you know, we can get to this, but part of our issue at the local level too is that people don't run. Yeah, it's whoever has stepped up to take that position or who was appointed because a seat was vacant. And that's another part of this, right? If you want to be represented and you live in a place with a couple hundred people and there has to be 5 people on your town council, somebody's got to step up to do that job. Otherwise, whoever is available or whoever is kind of brought in by the existing candidate or existing locally elected officials, those are going to be the ones running things and deciding how things get cut up in town. And so that's why, you know, voting really matters. And actually what happens between this post-election period and the next election season really matters.
Yeah. And we are talking to Angelique Shaw of Charlottesville Tomorrow and their 2024 voter guide. Angelique, I remember last year, particularly Jesse Higgins, from Charlottesville Tomorrow did a lot of groundwork when it came to like surveying, particularly the rural areas, looking outside of Charlottesville. So to your point, I'm curious on if there was like one highlight, like one shining star of like what was different, because a lot of times people forget the differences between a lot of the rural areas and urban areas. As far as people running, to that point, is that, I mean, because people of color running for local offices in a lot of our surrounding, rural areas is unseen.
There have been a couple candidates. They don't always win, but there have been people stepping up more and more. And that also has to do with the fact that, I mean, you all know, right? People of color are moving out of Charlottesville and even out of Albemarle County. So you see Louisa, Greene, Madison, Nelson, Fluvanna have much more diverse communities now. And those communities are beginning to say, hey, we want to be represented too.
Beginning.
Yeah, just beginning.
Yeah, I know.
But like Albemarle hasn't had a person of color on the board. They said like decades.
Yeah,
right? It's been decades.
Was it 3 decades?
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
There's one race in Albemarle County this year. It's for the special election for the Rio district. There's a school board seat available.
I thought you was going to say like Dr. King. There's only one race, the human race.
And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. When we talk about like school board and stuff like that's one thing, but like I was thinking of board of supervisors for the counties and stuff like that's where it gets like very different in the rural areas.
There's so many structural ways that it is difficult to run for office, local candidates, right? I mean, these are smaller places. You have to have time. Most of these offices are volunteer or very low pay. Some have stipends or, or some salary. And as things are politicized, you're like putting yourself in a position of leadership, and that's what leadership is. So the question, that we're thinking about a lot is how do we present information that allows people to understand what these roles are? And also, how do you even register your candidacy? What are the steps you need to take to be ready to lead communities in this way? Because in truth, last year, 75% of these local elections were uncontested or didn't have enough candidates. 75%. That means as voters, we aren't even choosing. We aren't even choosing who represents us. This year, there's 23 local races happening in the 12 counties and a couple towns that we cover in our voter guide. 23, largely town council, town mayor, couple treasurer, and a few special elections and other seats. 2/3 uncontested or not enough candidates. And to me, when we're talking about democracy, yes, the presidential election matters. This is the crisis of our democracy in a lot of ways.
So y'all make sure y'all go see that voters guide, because they break it down. You can select your jurisdiction by county or town. So please, y'all get informed.
Absolutely.
Who's who. So because the last day for early voting was yesterday on Saturday, November 2nd, 5 p.m. This Tuesday, November 5th is election day. Angelique, school us real quick on what happened with the state wiping some registered voters from contention. Can you break that down? What happened?
So there was a court case. There were a couple court cases, and it was allowed to proceed. But basically, the basics are that some folks filled out a form at the DMV most of the time. We're still trying to figure out exactly what happened. Daily Progress actually had a good report on Charlottesville area voters who were purged from the registration rolls. Some people checked the wrong box on that form. And what the Youngkin administration did was remove folks who may be U.S. citizens but didn't check the right box on their DMV registration form, saying that they're U.S. citizens. So they're comparing those two documents and saying there's an inconsistency here.
And of course, that most adversely affects brown people, right?
It does, because who is filling out those forms? It's a lot of people who recently moved to the area, but not entirely. We're seeing now it's taking a minute to see who these voters are. But voters who get their voter the upside of this is two things. One, if your voter registration has been removed, it's not that many cases, so I don't want to cause panic here. But the state of Virginia actually lets you know. They send you a notice. The other thing to remember is that if you get to your polling place on Tuesday,
this is important,
and you go to cast your ballot, and the poll worker says you're not in our rolls, you can register up to the day of the election, and you can cast a provisional ballot. So that means that even if you're not on the books, and the poll worker, God bless them, these wonderful volunteers who do this work for all of us. you can cast a provisional ballot. That means that it doesn't go in the machine. It doesn't get counted immediately. There is a review to make sure that you are who you say you are, you're eligible to vote, and that you haven't voted somewhere else or voted already. And then your vote gets counted.
Angelique.
Okay, so there is a way.
That ain't exactly true. Back when Denver Riggleman and Bob Good were running, they had and the part I'm saying is not true, is that these volunteer voters, God bless them. No, ma'am. I was down there and they had people waiting at the gate and police officers up top that were disqualifying people that were voting for Denver Riggleman for any type of thing. You name it. You didn't have your license with you. You didn't have a current license. You didn't have a current inspection sticker on your car. They were looking for any type of reason to block you from voting.
Yeah.
They tried to block me from voting. I was down there for Denver. That was where my vote was going.
Yeah.
And I had to call my wife, and she, for whatever reason, took a picture of my ID before I left, or a couple of days beforehand, and had to send that picture. So the only reason they let me through, because they was like, oh, she got a picture of your ID. Yeah, I'll let you vote. Right. Not knowing that she actually had it. Sent it down there, right. And then I was able to put my vote in. But there were people crying at the bottom of the hill that were blocking, and they weren't black people. They just didn't care.
I'm really glad that folks are beginning to understand their rights better, because, okay, let me back up a second and say people who volunteer to work these polling places, again, by and large, these are people who just want to help. And yes, there might be some people who maybe are ill-informed or have partisan politics. How do we guard against that? We have to know what our rights are, right? So when you get down there, you know, I can cast, even if you say that I don't see you in the polls or I'm not accepting your form of ID. If you have any questions at all, in our voter guide, we link to all the things that you need to know about your right to vote, so that you can get your provisional ballot in, even if they're not going to let you vote and count it immediately.
I had a DMV paper where I just got a new license, and they wouldn't accept it, and it was from their DMV down in Lynchburg where I was voting at. You know, so
they need picture ID, right? So you know, I think that you had were able to get that picture was really, really good. Should you have had to do that or not, I'm not gonna say, but you got your rights. Voting is really important.
Very true.
And make sure you if you're eligible to vote, use that right, exercise that right. Don't let anybody stop you.
That's right. And Angelique, we're up against time, but thank you. This is great information.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully we got people energized, ready to go vote, ready to exercise those rights. But anything you want to leave with us? Last words in regards to CVille Tomorrow, 2024 voter guide.
We really hope it's a good service. That's really our goal, is to give people the kind of information that they can use to get empowered, to understand not just the election, but everything that happens after the election, all the decisions that the folks that you're electing into office are going to make, and how you can get involved. Listen, we're out here in Central Virginia. We're not in New York City. We're not in Los Angeles. We don't have that many people here. We all have to get involved if we want our community to work right.
That's right.
And the way, how do you get involved? One way that we think we can help is by helping you get information. So definitely get to that voter guide. If you like it, sign up for free emails, so that even after the election, I know for some folks it's really hard to think about after the election right now, but after the election, stay informed, understand how you can get involved in the programs and civic life that affects you every day.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. So next time, y'all, go vote.